Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Evolving Life. It's me, Samantha, and I'm just so happy to have a very special guest with us on today. This is Dr. Stephanie. She is my sister, and I'm so happy to have her here today. Hey, Steph.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Of course, I'm so super excited. For those of you guys who are just joining Evolving Life, here on the show, our purpose is to remind you of your light, remind you of your power, remind you of the well-being that exists inside of you. We're just trying to remind you and give you practical ways to connect with it on a regular basis. So that's the purpose of why we're here. So this episode, we are talking about some things that you can stream, some shows, some content that you can stream that can be uplifting and get you thinking and can be a little bit light. I know sometimes when we are super busy and we get like in the funk and we just want to binge Netflix and chill. That's okay too. Find your guilty pleasure and lean in. But sometimes it might just be the trick to watch something that will actually uplift you and will sort of shine a little light on that wellspring that's inside. And so I invited my sis here because we stream a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And we chat about it a lot. And
Mm-hmm.
so I invited her here to kind of give her insights and talk about one particular series that we've streamed many, many times. It's on the platform Gaia, which is a platform that really tries to bring content that's sort of like holistic in nature. It has a lot of shows on there about alternative medications or health or meditation or spiritual traditions. It really tries to take a holistic and spiritual view of life, and that's sort of where their content is. And so the docu-series that we're going to discuss today is called Samadhi. And I know a lot of you are like, so what?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, Samadhi is of the, I think, yogic, right, Seth? Yoga tradition,
Yeah, it's a Sanskrit word.
Sanskrit
Mm-hmm.
word, yoga, maybe Hindi, of that
Vedic.
Vedic tradition.
Mm-hmm.
But really, after, like, if you listen to it, if you watch the show, if you sort of allow the concepts to sort of connect to your personal experiences, it's not some far-fetched concept. It is something that feels very much like home and
Mm-hmm.
very much like a place where I think all humans sort of have this built-in um desire to attain. Everybody wants to attain this samadhi, you know, this enlightened state, this peace, this place of where it's balance. I feel like when I say the word balance, like, that'll really get it. So, um, Steph, do you remember for you where you were in your life when this series found you? Because I
Mm-hmm.
feel like that's how Gaia is. I mean, it's probably the algorithm a little bit, but
You
also
actually told me about it.
I did.
You did.
Oh, okay. All right, go ahead.
You told me that you had watched it. And so, like I always do, when you tell me you watch or have read something, I'm like, well, let me see if it resonates with me. So I watched it, and yeah, I can't remember exactly. I've watched it so many times since the first time I've watched it that I can't remember fully what was going on during that time.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember, um, I would say like spiritual awakening for me is like a process that I've been kind of undergoing for a number of years now. And I know for some people, they may have like this spiritual awakening that happens overnight. And for some people, maybe it does happen like that. Mine has been more of a mix. It's been like these kind of light bulb moments mixed in with a little like I have to practice to remind myself of things, with a few dark night of the soul experiences sprinkled in there, and more of it's just integrating into my waking life.
Yeah.
So for me, it's more of a gradual kind of sowing and releasing and transforming. So timeline is really hard for me to keep track of because of the way that I'm kind of evolving in
Yeah.
my particular path.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like also that it sort of finds you where you are. Like, if you are particular, I'm in a space where, I'm overwhelmed and I need just to like, you know, get pare things back. Like I feel like I connect with that series when I just want to like get to, it's almost like the power of now, like get to like an absolute zero. Like I
Yeah.
don't want a whole bunch of, concepts. I don't want to, it's like a singular concept that really, it's all about like letting go and detaching and,
Yeah.
you know, shedding. Because I feel like our world is, I don't want another spiritual practice all the time to like try to like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Somebody I feel like kind of touches on this idea of there's a wholeness and a way to connect spiritually that at its core is like letting go and you don't got to do nothing.
Mhm.
I feel like we show up doing so much
Mhm.
for the world and get caught up in our everyday life, like to have something that's like you doing it when you let go.
You're doing it when you let go.
Yeah.
It's such a challenging concept to remember in daily life.
Yeah.
Um, because it's like a remembering of the fact that this is like kind of a matrix setup, right? It's like remembering the fact that you're here, like the duality of being here now in your body and living out this existence, but this not being the totality of your existence, right? And that you exist way beyond the confines of what our physical form takes.
Yeah.
And that's the most powerful reminder that I get to kind of bask in whenever I watch it. It's like when I get too trapped into my life's circumstances and the things happening around me, I need to create some space between me and the face and mask and identities and all
Mm,
the things that I'm kind of doing in this existence, to step back and say, wait a minute, I'm like an infinite being that exists on many different dimensions.
mhm.
And this form is one form that I'm taking. And I get to play around with what this form is, right? And I say play around with because I'm reminded in that series of they mentioned the divine game of Leela and the illusion of the self, and like how in this existence we get to experience the polarities of what it means to be human, but it's just not the totality of
Yeah.
who we are.
Yeah.
And that is such a powerful reminder for me because life is hard sometimes and it gets heavy and it gets exhausting. And then you find yourself constantly on this, like, I'm thinking like a tightrope. You're like
Yeah.
constantly moving toward pleasure and trying to avoid pain. And you're just stuck in this like constant push pull struggle. And I'm just like, I just kind of want to I don't want to do any of those things. I don't want to move toward anything. I don't want to run away from anything. I just want to be
Yeah.
here.
Yes. I like what you said about how the concept of samadhi kind of elicits for you this idea of remembering.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like bringing an awareness of the duality and then existing like, okay, this is the duality and I'm just going to exist in the space in between where I'll let this do its thing, I'll let it do that thing, but I'm this infinite being in this middle space, and I'm just going to chill here for a sec, like
Yeah.
you
I just
know.
want to hang out here.
Yeah, that I love it.
Yeah.
Is there anything like, because is it a 3-part series or a 4-part
It's three
series? It's
parts.
3 parts.
Mm-hmm.
So is there anything, and you can kind of pull from any parts of the docu-series, but is there anything that you remember that was like the first time you heard it, you like, what? Like that was just kind of mind blowing or just really stuck with you? Is there any particular concept or from the docu-series?
Yeah, there are a couple since I reminded myself by rewatching it most recently. I would before I rewatched it, I would have said one of the things that stands out is the segment that says like, don't try to cling on to anything that you hear in the
Yes.
series. And I thought that was both funny and just like curious,
Yeah.
because I'm like, I thought it was funny because I'm like, why go through all the trouble to like make this whole production, say all of these things, describe all of these concepts just to say, don't even worry about trying to remember them or hold on to them, and I just thought that was kind of very interesting.
Yeah.
And then I realized that a lot of it I didn't actually remember.
Mm-hmm.
It was just the act of being present with all of these things that brought me into the present moment, brought me into the present moment, brought me into that space. It basically just helped me get there. I
Yes.
didn't need to hold on to anything, right? I didn't need to do anything. I just needed to be present with it.
Yeah.
And that alone was good enough for getting me out of the monkey mind, the monkey brain,
Yeah.
busy. I'm always having to do something. It helped me just slow my pace down and be present. So that's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and another thing was how it reminds me of how savvy our brains are in our lives.
It's a
Like,
tricky bastard.
you know, our brains are really savvy.
Yeah.
Like, we might reach spaces, like it mentioned things like you may have to experience samadhi on multiple occasions in order before you start really integrating it. And because your mind will pull you back into like this illusion that you've achieved a certain thing. And as soon as you believe you've achieved a certain thing, it's kind of like that's when the ego kind of takes over. So it's like, actually, you lost it right there.
Yeah.
So it
Yeah.
reminds me of how savvy the brain is in its grasping of things, and
Mm-hmm.
how we're constantly still trying to move toward some enlightenment or some high thing, right? And that is still a part of the identity with achievement.
It is. It is. And I think I'm glad that you said that because I feel like baked in a lot of like our whatever your particular faith tradition is, I bet you baked into it, especially when I think of like Judeo-Christian, it's baked into this idea of, you know, doing things to get better, better, more spiritual. I'll say that.
Mhm.
Doing things to get more spiritual,
Closer
get
to
better,
God.
yeah, better connected. Um, you know, and I think what I think would probably be a more accurate sort of way of describing their relationship should be this idea of like, no, like it's the stuff, it's
It's
the
the stuff.
doing, it's the striving that
Mhm.
actually is hampering us getting to, it's like getting more spiritual is not an upward move, it's not a, it's actually a you know what I
And
mean?
you know what? I actually like to see it as like a clearing.
Yes,
Like
that's
it's
another way.
really a separateness is actually the illusion is that we're separate to begin with, or that we are distant to begin with,
Yes,
right?
yes,
And it's how deeply steeped our psyche is in that idea that we even are
are separate.
separate or at a distance,
Yeah,
sometimes it's removing all of the psychic stuff, all of the mental egoic stuff that is creating an illusion that there even is a separateness.
yeah, absolutely. I like that that was something that you remember. I think for me, um, uh, just the idea that was my first sort of, I think, introduction to this concept of Maya
Mm,
in the form of like, I mean, I had heard it. I think it's in Buddhism. They talked about how Buddha sat under the tree,
mm-hmm,
the Bodhi tree, I think.
mm-hmm.
And he just sat there and let Maya just came to him. And that's how he reached enlightenment, was he allowed it to come, but he didn't waver. He let it come and then he let it go. He let Maya come, do Maya's thing, and then and go, and still stay centered. And so I had heard that before, but in relation to Samadhi, it really sort of, hit the concept home, because it was like, it's almost like I befriended Maya. Like, Maya is not the enemy. Maya
Mm-hmm.
is like part of life here as a human, with the psyche, with mental constructs, with the
Mm-hmm.
thinking mind. And it's not necessarily something that's like, I'm going to slay the dragon and it's dead once and for all.
Yeah.
Like, it's like you said, it's kind of an ebb and flow. And that's in that. And in this series, that's sort of when I really started to understand that more, and be honestly befriending my own mind, and building compassion for all the stuff.
All the stuff. So much stuff all the time.
All the stuff. And even in our like day-to-day lives, when I think a lot of us carry a lot of like sort of guilt and maybe even shame around uh the way we think or
Yeah.
how we behave.
Yeah.
I think developing a better relationship with those things that we don't like about ourselves, that we were taught were bad or ugly or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
To me, that was part of how you reach Samadhi too. It was like just developing a better relationship with the stuff, you know?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I
Yeah.
think because I think the way I'm thinking of just space, right? Space in general, and
Mm-hmm.
how when we create space between our broader consciousness existence and Maya, right? The self that it's built and constructed, it allows us to it naturally allows us to have a different relationship with it, right? Because it's like, oh, wait, so I made this up. Like I'm playing a part in this. Like some of the things I think maybe on some level before we incarnated here, we chose certain identities, right? So that's a part of the Maya as well. It's like the identities we hold during the time that we're born in and what that means for the society and the culture and all of the social things we're navigating, right? That's all a part of what it means to be here and be embodied as humans. But it's understanding that helps you to really see, like, wait a minute, it's not just me creating this, but we're collectively creating. We are collectively
Mm,
creating meaning of all of these things, you know? So if you grew up and you learned that, you know what, I shouldn't feel sad because, you know, sadness is not acceptable. It's not an acceptable emotion. Or I shouldn't be angry. That's an unacceptable emotion. And yet you experience sadness and anger, then you develop shame around you experiencing sadness and anger. And it's like, but who told me that in the first place? That
yeah,
I shouldn't feel that way, and why not? You
yeah,
know, and I think being able to take that seat really helps you to see how much is socially created
yeah,
around us. And then
yes.
we get to both hold compassion for it and choose how
Mm-hmm.
we want to relate to it moving forward.
Yes. I like that you added that piece because it is empowering. I think
Mm-hmm.
so often people, you know, and this is just another social construct, that being somehow compassionate and understanding means not taking accountability. But
Mm.
saying that it's okay, that's not what compassion and that is not what it means.
No, no,
You
no,
know,
no.
it's about taking that seat, like you said, and say, hey, I'm gonna have an approach that's not shame and guilt. I'm gonna have an approach that is appreciation or acceptance or kindness,
Yeah,
something that is other than shame or guilt, knowing that it could be social, it could be how my family taught me, it could be how it could be
all of it. A
anything,
combination of
a
all of it.
combination of all the things, and I don't have to personally attach to this thing and just be riddled with this shame and guilt. I can see it for what it is, accept it, and then the empowerment pieces, I can choose to be different because it's a behavior that may not be serving me, or maybe it's an emotion that I'm getting stuck in that's causing me not to move forward in a certain way. Like,
Yeah,
when you see it clearly, you can actually choose which way you want to go.
yeah.
So I like to know what what does somebody feel like, cuz I think sometimes words, right? Like all the words. And I think trying to wrap your brain around very abstract concepts like Samadhi, it can be hard
Mhm,
and it can be frustrating, especially when you're used to like grasping at like an understanding, a mental understanding of something, and not really connected to like a wisdom space or like a knowing, an intuitive knowing, and
mhm.
what that feels like in your own body. So I
Yeah.
want to know for you, what, when after you watch the series or after you kind of really digested the concepts, like what does samadhi feel like to you, like in your body?
Hmm. Even like
Mhm.
even like that question and starting to form an answer around it feels like this is not somebody. It just can't be. It just can't be described. Um,
I know,
but let
like
me tell
it's
you,
for sure.
and it may be different for different people. You okay?
Yes.
It may be different for different people, but I think for me, this is the best way. It's going to sound real artsy. This is the best way that I can describe
It's
it
all
in my
right for the
body.
artsy people out there.
It just feels like it feels like a bit of an like a internal void, but not in a scary way. Because I know
Okay.
voids can be kind of, creepy, scary.
Hmm.
Like we've been conditioned to believe that, like darkness, voids, it's like, oh,
Right.
the unknown. But it feels more like the great unknown, that it's like a place
Mm.
within me, like the great unknown that I have a lot of reverence for. And it feels like my waking life is kind of it emerges from this void.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like movement, but it also feels very quiet and still.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just very pregnant.
I love the artsy, just I love all the things.
That's what it feels like for me. Like I'm connecting to that. Like, it reminds me of some of the meditations that I do where like I go into the void and I'm like imagining myself, doing things I would be terrified to do in real life,
Yeah.
and allowing my imagination to relinquish the fear and actually go into it. You know, Stuff like falling into an endless pit, right? When we think of that term in movies within context, we're just like, oh God, you're never going to return from that. And when I do meditation, sometimes I imagine myself and I feel it in my body and everything of me falling into an endless pit just to see what happens as I continue falling. And it feels like
Mm.
I'm just relinquishing all of
Yeah.
my all of my ties and bondage
Yeah.
to the things that I feel like are like my earthly identities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I definitely could see how, doing an exercise like that is very I can see how it could be very freeing.
Yeah.
Um because there's something about being pushed into a pit, or even like falling unintentionally in the pit, but when you intentionally go into one, it's powerful, and be like, yeah, this is scary, but I am one with it. Like, this is me. This is part of life. It is,
Mhm.
all the things to say, or the affirmations, or the body sensations that you can use to sort of be comfortable in the unknown. I think it's a wonderful exercise, and it's definitely something that can help you in life.
Yeah,
Because that's what life
sure.
is, right? Like, very much unknown, and this illusion of control that we use to think that it's not, but it really is.
Right. It really is.
I For me, I would say this is the imagery that comes to me instantly when I think of Samadhi. Like, say if you're like on a dock, right, and it's sunset, and you're like reclining on like like a lounge chair,
Hmm.
and the dock is long, so you're jetted out on the water, and the sun is setting, so you're looking out at the horizon, and right at the point where that sun hits the horizon and that water gets that little glimmer and shimmer, it's like right at that like precipice.
Hmm.
It's like you're not sad that like the day is over. You're not grieving that, oh, this day is gone, the sun is about to set. And you're also not like worried about, oh, what will the night bring? The darkness, like what's going to happen? Like, you're right there. It's like everything is fine.
Hmm.
That feeling of like just everything is just all is well.
Yeah.
That's, to me, for some reason, somebody is like, it's just
Hmm. As well.
It's
I
like,
ain't got no problems.
no problems. Right there. Is this the day did it what it did, the night gonna do what it did.
Yeah.
you know. So what keeps you coming back to it? Like, we both have mentioned that we watched this thing over again. And me, I don't even think I've ever watched it straight through, like sat and watched it, because it is like, it's a docu-series. So in this show, there's like a voiceover, and then there's like different images and different clips. and different things like that. So it's very artistic. So for those of you who are really into like artistic sort of depictions, non-traditional type sort of content like that, like you'll like it for sure. And like I said, I haven't even watched all the images straight through. I've listened to it like just like a podcast. So what for you keeps you coming back to it over and over and over again?
I come back to remind myself,
Yeah.
I think, and I even have to release some idea that like I won't need to do it.
Like you have
Because in my
arrived,
mind, I'm just like,
you got
eventually I'll get to
Samadhi.
a place. Yes. Eventually I'll get to a place where I don't, and I'm just like, just release that too. Like just release the idea that you might not need that. And maybe you will.
Yeah.
And maybe that's okay, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes I just get to it's like the mask of my life feels like it's me.
I get it.
Meaning I'm so identified with it that I am getting so pulled into the rat race,
Yes.
the trap of all of our social conditioning. And when I feel, it's like I get glimmers in between there, like indicators are just like, hey, you're in it. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I am in it. Where am I? Oh, I'm in it. I am in it. And that I usually can tell when I'm in it that way when my suffering increases.
Mm.
So I'm more irritable. I'm more attached to outcomes. I feel more like I'm trying to control things or, and so when I feel like my suffering has increased to a level that I'm just like, wait, am I creating this for myself because I'm too
Mm-hmm.
attached or too tied or too trying to control things? And then I know like, okay, it's time to do something to help you get some more space in there to
Mm-hmm.
release some of this stuff. And that's when I'll go back to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's same, I think, for me too. Like it's a nice reminder. It's a nice like, I think for people like us who are very curious about sort of uh abstracts, the mystical, the things, the concepts you just can't quite pin down,
Mm-hmm.
but everybody is aware. I mean, it's spirituality basically.
Yeah.
This type of concept draws us in and helps us sort of create a framework for us to like remember, oh yeah, we are spiritual beings having a human experience.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not for everybody. Like some people, maybe it's, when they get in the zone, when they run in a marathon, they're like,
Yeah.
oh, like I'm connecting to something greater than myself. Like that's their thing. So I think people need to really get to know themselves so that they can figure out for themselves what is it that can guide them back
Yes.
to finding themselves. What is it that you relate to that can help remind you that you are this spiritual being connected to the source of everything, having a human experience.
Having a human experience.
Yeah. So I think that was great. That's a good place to wrap up, I think.
Okay. Cool.
How can folks stay connected with you and your work, and just give us a little sampling of what you do and how people can stay in touch?
Sure. I own and operate the Mindful Gray Healing Space, where I offer coaching services for people who are, I would say, on the spiritual journey, who are looking for just help and support because it can be challenging. Because my background is in clinical psychology, I tend to, you know, um, integrate some of that into my work, and not Not a ton, right? No diagnosing and things like that. But more conceptualizing based on humans living, humans being spiritual beings, and what it means to kind of be in this existence, in this
Yeah.
incarnation. And I integrate different practices into that. I also am a Reiki practitioner, so um, I really enjoy doing guided meditations with people and helping them connect with themselves spiritually, helping them connect with healing energy that's literally all around us. We just have to tune into it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so those are some of the things that I do. I enjoy working with crystals. I enjoy incorporating sound and aromatherapy into the work as well. Um, so yeah, I'm at the
Awesome.
Mindful Gray.
Nice. So you guys check her out. She is the real deal for sure. And, kind heart. Loves
Thank you.
people. And so if you're looking for a healing experience, that's what I'm going to call it, a healing experience, because I think a lot of times in conventional Western medicine and conventional therapeutic settings, it's so transactional. It's so like, tell me your diseases and let me call you this. Tell me all
Mhm.
your diseases and let me give you a pill for that. When healing wasn't meant to be transactional. Healing is supposed to be integrative, holistic, and loving, in order to support just the remembering, because that's the main part of connecting to your healing, is the remembering
Yeah.
of your spirituality. So check her out at the Mindful Gray. Is it the mindfulgray.com?
Yep.
The mindfulgray.com. And then are you on socials?
I am on Instagram at the Mindful
At the
Gray.
Mindful Gray on Instagram. Check her out. Check out her content. Um, and I'm not just biased because she's my sister. Like, she's good. All right. Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Evolving Life. You guys, like and subscribe. Share this channel with your friends. Like, we out here trying to spread the word. This is a movement here, a movement
Mhm.
towards a softer life, a life that isn't so burdened with all the stuff of capitalism and trying to do all the things. We're trying to like break free of that. So share this with your friends, with your loved ones, with other mamas and women. All right. We'll catch you next time. Bye.